Hello, and thank you all once again for joining us for Hacker Halted 2021. My name is David Sanchez, and it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. President and co-founder of SafePC Cloud, a company focused on data backup and recovery, MADINAH Ali has served as chair of Women in Technology and currently co-leads the Atlanta chapter for the Women in Technology Network. She is a member of the Cybersecurity Tech Accord, created the EdTech division to bridge the gap for women and people of color, and is completing her Microsoft Certified Trainer designation. MADINAH will be speaking on why email security and cybersecurity training must be at the forefront of our new normal. With that being said, it's my pleasure to present MADINAH Ali.
Thank you so much. I am truly honored to be here today. Again, my topic, why email security and cybersecurity are the new normal. And we're going to have a very exciting discussion today. And thank you again. And MADINAH Ali, President and CEO of SafePC Cloud. Why email security and cybersecurity training must be at the forefront of our new normal. And what I mean by our new normal is that because of the pandemic, we are currently in a work from home environment. And to operate in a work from home safe environment, there are 5 tools that we must utilize. We all know about the anti-malware tools, the antivirus protection, but also more importantly, the firewall security in our work from home network, as well as the implementation of multi-factor authentication, as well as understanding that even though we're accessing a lot of our documents either through Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, that the cloud has its own vulnerabilities. And the 5th element that I'm going to really talk about is training. And that is training your staff about email phishing, training them to make sure they have the right security protocols in their work from home environment. This is very, very critical. And a lot of times when companies are onboarding their new employees, they're always focusing on orientation, HR policy. But we are implementing now and recommending IT security policy, which includes training on how not to open improper emails. So again, this is our new normal. Hopefully we will be back all in the physical office, as they say, but we're all working on through VPN, virtual private networks. It is critical that they are secure and that the proper protocols are in place. So as I talked to you all prior about the importance of training, did you all know that 80% of the cybersecurity attacks come from what we call email phishing? And that is when you get an email, it looks like it may be your boss or a colleague at work or a vendor or just a normal email. And what has happened is your email or your security has been compromised. And usually, if employees are not trained properly, they will open up the email and it makes your whole entire network become vulnerable. email protection, as I like to call it, or email security, along with the training, helps companies and organizations combat the increase in phishing. And because over the past year and a half, we have been working from home due to the COVID pandemic, this technique of email phishing has increased. And basically, cyber criminals are taking all kind of personal information, but it's very, very important that you train your staff regarding email phishing. Because if they don't understand that this email can compromise the whole company, the data, the information, and the assets, it makes the organization vulnerable. The other thing that I want to point out is what we're calling now zero trust policy. And I want to really talk about what zero trust policy is and methods that are being utilized in zero trust policy. Some people have heard of it. Some people have not heard of it. But I want to make it very, very simple. Zero trust policy verifies every employee, every user, and I know I keep mentioning the word employee. A lot of companies have contractors also working for them, independent contractors. So we qualify them also as a user. Validate every device within the organization. And I'm not talking about just the devices the company owns. I'm talking about the devices that your employer contractor may be using that does not belong to the organization. And that is around what we call BYOD, bring your own device policy, which is also very important and very, very critical. Because a lot of times employees can be reading their emails from their smartphones, and when they get it from their smartphone, they're thinking, oh, this is authentic, this may be real. But a lot of times the email phishing attack is coming through the smartphone, not necessarily the laptop or the desktop. And that's when a lot of times they open up the email. So with zero trust policy, you're verifying the user, you're validating every device, and that includes devices that the user is using, company-wide and personal-wide. And thirdly, intelligently limiting access to your network. And what we mean by limiting the access is that making sure that there's strong authentication policies in place. So, for example, as we see here in my presentation, give me one quick second. I think I may have a question here. Okay. One of the questions right now is, do you still recommend anti-malware software for Apple Macs used at home? This is an excellent question. And yes, I do recommend my anti-malware products for Apple. Apple has recently ran into some of the similar vulnerabilities as Windows Desktop. We utilize a tool for Mac referred to as Malware Bytes, and we have seen a lot of success with that tool. And as I was stating about emails coming through your smartphone, remember that the iPhone, which is a very commonly used smartphone, which is a part of Apple, really impacts the vulnerability. And so a lot of times now that a lot of staff are working from home, they're utilizing their MacBooks, they're utilizing their iPhones, they're utilizing their iPads, and a lot of those are personal devices. And you have email coming through there. So definitely you have to have an anti-malware solution. So very good question. Please feel free to continue to ask questions as I continue to go around as I continue to discuss the zero trust policy. So as I stated earlier, the zero trust policy, again, what it does, it verifies every user, ensures that we have all the devices that are on our network owned by the company, as well as devices utilized by, personal devices that employees or contractors use to conduct business. And then we limit the access. I'm going to go over 5 ways we limit the access. Strong authentication. I talked about one of the 5 areas that's for safe work from home environments. Ensuring strong multi-factor authentication and risk detection as the backbone of your network access strategy to minimize the risk. So the identity of your employee is not compromised. This is very, very crucial. The other thing that I wanted to mention, it is important that the IT administrator, the network, or you want to call the network administrator, maintains the passwords, manages the passwords, and also, as a part of managing the password, implement multi-factor authentication. Now, I'm okay sometimes with employees knowing their passwords, but it's important that they are not able to reset their password. The password needs to be reset by the administrator, and it needs to be controlled in a, as they said, limited access capacity. The second point here is policy-based adaptive access. It is important that as a part of your HR, your human resources policy, your employees policy, that you have an IT security policy that goes around access, what the employee can access, and that even goes to certain sites in the internet. They cannot access everything on the internet. They only need to be accessing what is relevant to their job. And it's important you define that within your security policy. The other important point is microsegmentation. And what we mean by that is moving beyond simple centralized network-based perimeter to comprehensive distributed segmentation of the network. This is critical because you want to make sure that when you have your network and it's not vulnerable to 1 or 2, 3 points in the centralized network. You want to have multiple, and it needs to be comprehensive. And if one is hit, it will still keep operating your network. You can shut down certain parameters of the network, and still keep things operational, but it gives you time to make sure things are secure and you're not taking a vulnerable risk. The other thing that's important is that organizations must invest in automation, and meaning it is important that if you're having a ransomware attack, or if someone is around the network or searching on the network, or if an email phishing has been sent to an employee, you need to be monitoring and getting automated reports daily. This is so important because you do not want to risk vulnerability in your network. Because a lot of times when a ransomware attack happens, the attacker has been looking at the network for the last 30 days. They're already researching vulnerabilities. They're already seeing what employee does what before they put the attack out there. Just a couple of hours ago, we were on a call with a particular client where, and it is a small business. I mean, it's only 25 employees, and right now they're asking for $250,000 because they're locking down his network. But this particular client, what this company does is he manages private planes. These are CEOs of corporations, entrepreneurs who are flying around in private planes. And that has increased recently because of the whole pandemic and security. More and more people are taking planes privately. But his network was vulnerable. And our research showed, just by putting a network node on there, that the attacker had been on the network just the past 30 days, just understanding the business, understanding trends, understanding what was being done. The other thing that's evolving in this area around zero trust policy as well, and network monitoring and email monitoring, is the business intelligence and AI, what we call as artificial intelligence, where we're utilizing AI to detect for abnormal activity in the email, the cloud, and IT network environment. So that's another important policy around zero trust that organizations need to adapt. And they're able to get these reports in real time. So basically, when it happens, you're able to see the report and to make sure you're monitoring the network successfully. Just want to check to make sure if I have any questions. Okay. So, let me get to I want to just do a recap real quickly. Okay, hold on one second. Okay. As a recap to this presentation, we talked about the 5 must-haves for the work from home environment. That is the anti-malware tool. And anti-malware goes a little bit further than just your normal antivirus protection. For Windows, we have Windows Defender, but we also have several other products such as ABG, Symantec, whatever. But we need to adapt some of the more, along with the antivirus protection, we need the anti-malware, and we utilize Malwarebytes for both Windows as well as Mac. The other important must have is multi-factor authentication tools. Making sure you have a verification process when you are logging in to your system to verify who you are. The other important point that I want to make sure we just address on the work from home. Of course, we all are in the cloud. We all have to do our training, which is critical. So, and then as I went into the whole notion of email security and training, that is 80% of the attacks are due to email phishing. And that is a suspicious email that is coming through either from the CEO, the manager, the end user. When you click on that, that is the potential for ransomware. In this new normal, in this environment that we are in, it is important that your current staff are trained so they do not open suspicious emails. And I recommend strongly that this is done on a quarterly basis, just as a reminder. And it would not even hurt to, when you send out daily or weekly announcements on what is going on, just say as a friendly reminder, if you get a suspicious email, please do not open it. Please call the IT service or help desk. And this is even for consumers. This is even for some of the smaller home-based businesses or small mid-market. Anything that looks suspicious, do not open it, because it can lead to a ransomware attack. So if you take anything away, and even a lot of times the emails look legitimate, but if you have not seen it, and make sure, do not look at just the name of the person, look at the email address and make sure it comes from a legitimate domain name. And then the third point that we got into is the whole arena of zero trust and zero trust policy. And that within your organization, verifying every user, making sure you have a list of all the devices within the company and personally, and limit network access. That is so important because you do not want to risk vulnerability within your organization. So real quickly, I know we have a lot of people here in this presentation, and I really want to open it up for questions and really want to have a constructive dialogue. So please feel free to ask away. Okay. So do we want to continue on in further discussion? Right now we don't have any questions. I'm a little surprised because I know that I went through a lot in this presentation. You all, we still have 20 minutes in this discussion, so let me know if you all have any more questions, or do you want us to continue on and go a little bit further? Just let me know. Okay, this is a very, very good question. Working from home, how do we implement tighter security on the virtual private network? First and foremost, there's several good tools out there, and basically what you want to do is make sure you want to make sure your network is secure. And one of the products that we recommend highly, is a NordVPN. Both AT&T and Comcast, they have the security. And the reason why it's important that you have a secure network, with us being at home, we're now on our smart TVs. There's a lot of streaming coming in. There's a lot of vulnerability that's coming in, and we just recommend you getting getting a robust, secure VPN solution. And there's several on the market. It's just that the one that we like is NordVPN. It's been a really reliable product, and it's costing as low as $3-4 a month, but it's something that that I'm even recommending companies cover this for for your employees that are working from home. So very, very good question. But we like NordVPN, but also your internet provider also now has a VPN solution, or they're reselling one as well. The other question are well, oh gosh, this is a very, very good question. The questions are coming in. Okay. What is your go-to reference for zero trust? I, as he had mentioned, as the moderator had mentioned earlier, I'm a member of the Cyber Tech Accord. And the Cyber Tech Accord is where all of the major IT companies come together. And what we do is we learn a lot about the policies and the technologies. I've been utilizing, and I have to say this, we are Microsoft Gold partners, so we reference a lot from the Microsoft Security Framework for Zero Trust. So I'm going to put that in there. I think if you Google Microsoft Zero Trust Security Framework, and policy, and all the major competitors like AWS and Google are using that. Also, check out Cyber Tech Accord. We come up with policies around the world to improve cybersecurity. This is an interesting question. How safe are the malware protection softwares? Well, I have to tell you that, unfortunately, we can't live with IT, and no solution is perfect. And but I can say that we always recommend having both the antivirus protection to protect you from viruses, and then coupled with a malware solution to protect you mainly from the malware that comes through the internet. And in terms of being safe, they're all vulnerable. They're all risk of being, hacked or being under some ransomware vulnerability. But for the most part, they are working. They're getting better. And that's why. And the other thing that I forgot to mention, which is so important, make sure you're updating your computer. One of the things that will make your system vulnerable is not doing the proper Windows updates, and that also includes the Mac and the Apple updates. I mean, that's so critical, because when you don't update your system, that also leads to vulnerability as well. So it's a combination of making sure your system is updated, making sure your system is clean, making sure your data is backed up. Your files are being backed up. Make sure that, you are doing the best you can, so the antivirus protection and the malware the malware solutions can work. Because if your system is not being updated, if your system is not being cleaned, if you have not backed up data on your system or your computer or your network, you're vulnerable. So I hope that helps. But a lot of times people say, "Oh, my antivirus protection didn't work. My malware did not work." Well, it did not work because there were other problems. Your system was not clean. You did not have the proper updates. We had one client had not updated Windows Defender, and again, it did not work because it was not updated. So it's a whole process, and that's what's important. This is a very, very, very good question about what are some of the tools I can use as a teacher to demonstrate social engineering. How do you train about threats in an interesting way? The way we train and some of the tools and stuff that we demonstrate, one of the things that, because we've had to consult and work with clients on ransomware, we actually take real life scenarios of emails. We show you a legitimate email, and then we show you an email that's coming from ransomware or an attacker. And once we show them that on the training and we go through about 5 different scenarios on email phishing. And then we also do a lot of role playing. Like, we will send you an email and then get a call them, like, "Oh, hey, we just sent an email and we talk like we're a legitimate vendor, and they think this is real," and then they open it, because that's another issue too, is that you sometimes when you open up an email or you open up something through your phone, you then get a call and it looks so real and legitimate. We train you that a lot of times that's when you're really being attacked and not knowing you're being attacked. And in terms of the tools, just you know, you know, we work with an organization called ISOGRAD TOSA, and we use a cybersecurity assessment that they have provided that gives employees an overview of just some of the different scenarios, some of the questions, but we don't give the assessment or show them the tools to how to navigate until we train them on the scenarios. We will always want to go through the scenario of the situation and make it as real as possible. So I hope that that's helped. And then again, you know, the Microsoft Zero Trust Security Framework policy is very good. I know AWS and Google Cloud have recently come out with very, very similar policies as well. So, but in terms of the training, give them a real life scenario. And then once we give them a real life scenario, give them some reading and just show them what we mean. Then we kind of do an assessment. And I think that assessment and the real life scenarios makes them very confident and like, oh, okay, I kind of know how not to, you know, how not to be attacked. And then also, you know, again, no solution is perfect when it comes to malware or antivirus protection, but make sure your system is updated. Make sure you have a data backup, that your files and data are being backed up. I know a lot of people just are trying to leverage OneDrive and Google Drive, but we always recommend utilizing a third-party tool to back up your data, including files on your C drive, but also files that are in the cloud. And oh, and I'm sorry, I missed this question. Are there any phishing tools you would use to conduct exercises with? I mean, basically, again, we utilize real life, you know, scenarios. There are a lot of phishing tools and products out there on the market where they'll walk you through the different exercises, but we've kind of created our own because of just real life experiences and giving real life scenarios. And then again, one of the good VPN solutions to tighten up security, we of course recommend NordVPN, but also check with your internet service provider and also check with your employer because they should be setting up a secure VPN for you. But also, one of the things that we've been implementing a lot is virtualization. I mean, so basically, when you log in, you're going into a virtual company network that's also protecting your security as well. So I hope this has been helpful. Great questions, everyone. And thank you for the compliments of the presentation. And we're going to make sure you get a copy of the presentation, the recording, and then also put together some more resources based on some of the questions that we did receive today. So back to you, moderator. Did we cover everything or am I missing something?
We still do have a couple of questions that we did have in the chat box.
I
Not sure if you wanted to address.
Yeah, I see those. Yeah, sorry about those. Okay, do you think we've lost control of corporate data at scale with instant access to everything on your smartphone? Yes, to a degree we have lost control of corporate data. That's why the BYOD, bring your own device policy is so important. And that's why there's an emerging growth in zero trust policy, because what that does is ensure that you know all of the devices within your organization, including the personal devices. And so, you know, the whole purpose of the zero trust policy is to make sure we start gaining a better control of the data. And the other trend that I'm starting to see is that companies are telling their employers you can only open the email through your desktop or your laptop. You can no longer utilize your smartphone, and that's usually the companies that have recently faced attacks. But again, it's so important that we know every device on the network, including the smartphone. But yes, we have lost control of corporate data to some degree, yes. And zero trust policy is trying to help garner back that control. But also, I don't think anyone was ever really prepared for the pandemic that we're in right now. And overnight, we had to all kind of regroup, implement multi-factor authentication, implement bring your own device policy, begin training, retraining employees, understanding all of the vulnerabilities. And at the same time, we felt there was some control because they were in the office, they were coming into their networks, we could monitor their smartphones. But now that people are working from home or working in different locations, it's very difficult. What are my thoughts on password manager tools like LastPass? To be honest with you, I do like password manager tools. I think LastPass is a good tool. There are several good tools, but what's more importantly is changing the password on a consistent basis and having a secure password. 12354 is not going to work. ABCDE in the password, that's not going to work. Your first name and then a couple of numbers, that's not going to work. So my emphasis is on changing the passwords more consistently and coming up with a more secure password. The beautiful thing about password managers is that they help you when you forget the password, because a lot of times when you start creating complex passwords, you do need a password manager tool. So it's important that you change your passwords consistently and that you develop secure passwords. And 1234 or even 54321 or these very simple passwords, they just do not work. Which tips do you suggest identifying phishing mails? It's hard. The hackers, the cyber hackers, they become very, very sophisticated. Our number one tip is when you get an email, look at that email address. Before you open it, go check the domain of that email. If you don't recognize that email, if you don't recognize who that person is, if you have any intuition that this is suspicious, just do not open it. But when we do our training and when we sit down with our clients, we tell them, please, even if it comes from the name or name you recognize, you have to look at the email address. You have to look at the domain, because a lot of times when email phishing comes up, it has the name, but when you look closer, it's not who that person is. And a lot of times with email phishing, they send you a name you're familiar with. They send you an email that you get on a regular basis. And that's why I was saying when there's a ransomware attack that's happening, it's usually the attacker has been on the network for 30 days. And so they're looking at the person. They're always opening their emails. They're looking at the person always on their smartphone. They're looking for that individual that just is constantly on their emails. So that's why I always say, before you respond, before you open, look at that email address. Is it a valid email address? Is it a valid domain name? So, but again, it's not easy. I think the first step is education And the second step is training. The third step is ongoing training and, building a knowledge base within your organization and with your staff, and just sending out weekly reminders and tips on, make sure you don't open up your email, make sure you have a secure VPN, make sure the firewall is on. If you need, our IT, our help desk team to look at it, please, if there's someone you need to speak to, just make sure you create a very supportive environment, create a very trusting environment so this does not happen. Any further questions as we wrap up? Because I think we only have 1 minute left. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. This was a great discussion, and I will make sure you get a copy of the presentation along with the additional resources based on the questions provided today, and also we have some white papers on work from home as well as email protection, and we will also make sure that EC Council has all of those resources for you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm always here if you need anything. Thank you.